The bull is in the China shop. Trump threatens Canada with tariffs. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Well, it landed like a bomb, and it has sent a shockwave across the country. In a post on social media, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said he's ready to slap an across-the-board 25% tariff on all products imported into the United States from Mexico and from Canada. Trump said he would do so on his first day back in office early next year. He said he would keep those tariffs in place until both countries fix what he called ridiculous open borders. He said both countries are letting in drugs, in particular fentanyl. Trump also said illegal aliens are invading the United States. The statement prompted a phone call last night from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to Donald Trump. This was the Prime Minister this morning as he headed into a meeting with his cabinet ministers.
We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth. We talked about some of the challenges that we can work on together. It was a good call. This is something that we can do, laying out the facts, moving forward in constructive ways. This is a relationship that we know takes a certain amount of working on, and that's what we'll do. One of the really important things is that we be all pulling together on this. The Team Canada approach is what works. That's where, putting aside partisanship, that's where I reached out immediately to Doug Ford to agree with him that we would have a First Ministers meeting this week to talk about the United States. Talked with François Legault and some other premiers as well. There's work to do, but we know how to do it.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford is leading the Council of the Federation these days, so he speaks on behalf of all the premiers. And he was quick to demand a meeting of all the premiers with the Prime Minister, which the Prime Minister, as you heard, now says will be held later this week. When asked to react to Trump's threat of tariffs, Doug Ford had some harsh words for Trump, but also admitted the threat is serious.
I found his comments unfair. I found them insulting. It's like a family member stabbing you right in the heart. I spent a lot of time in the U.S., and I have yet to talk to one American that has any issue with Canadians. We see drugs flow from Mexico, coming up through California, in through BC, into Alberta, into Ontario, and what we need to do is take that threat seriously. I had a conversation with the Prime Minister after he spoke to President-elect Trump last night. The threat is serious. We need to do better on our borders. We need to give the resources to CBSA, which are fine people. And I know, talking to other premiers last night, that we will do everything we can as provincial governments and territorial governments to secure our borders.
Premier Ford would go on to plead Canada's case with Donald Trump.
And a message to President-elect Trump: there's no closer ally, there's no other country in the world that has stood shoulder to shoulder with our American counterparts, our friends, our family. It's an insult to the 900,000 Americans that are living here in Canada. It's an insult to the 9 million Americans that wake up every single morning to produce products to ship up to Ontario alone. We hear the message loud and clear. The Prime Minister confirmed today that we're going to have a First Ministers meeting tomorrow at 5 p.m. We need to make sure that he has a strong plan to protect and secure our borders and make sure we address the threat from the U.S.
Now, on border issues, Donald Trump's new border czar is Tom Homan. He is visiting the southern border of the United States today, along with the governor of Texas. In an interview with Fox News today, he outlined again Trump's view of border security.
Well, look, if you want to secure the border, you got to put up border barriers. We've proven border barriers work. You also got to end catch and release. We got to put the Remain in Mexico program back in. You got the third safe country agreements. We got Congress needs to change the asylum laws, but I'm not counting that to happen. So President Trump's going to have to come in with executive orders like he did the first time. President Trump was a game changer with Remain in Mexico. He had the lowest illegal immigration over 45 years. Illegal immigration down 90%. And Brian, the example of this 2-year-old, when 90% less people are coming, how many children aren't dying crossing that border? How many children and women ain't sexually assaulted? So look, President Trump's policies work. We're going to do it again. This time we're going to finish the job.
Canadian dollar sold off on global currency markets after Donald Trump posted that statement on social media. The loonie has since recovered somewhat, but it is still near multi-year lows of about 71 cents U.S. Now, meantime, in Ottawa, there is another political play that remains near the top of the government's agenda. That is the Liberals and their GST holiday and the $250 checks that 18 million Canadians will get sometime next year. The federal Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, has now coined a brand new term that she is using to justify all of these Christmas goodies. She said the tax break and the money is to help tide people over because Canadians are in a vibe session.
The disconnect between the positive news that the numbers are showing about the Canadian economy and what people are feeling. He talked about how Canadians are feeling. And that's a really important economic point. A lot of economists have been talking about the vibe session and the fact that Canadians just aren't feeling good and that is having real economic consequences. And the Canadian economists making that point are right, that there is a disconnect between the real economic, the really positive economic news, the fact that the Canadian economy does appear set for a soft landing. That's good news, but Canadians aren't feeling it, and that is shaping their economic behavior in ways that are not great for the Canadian economy. People have been talking about a vibe session and how that is a challenge for the Canadian economy.
The price tag for this 2-month GST holiday and all of those $250 checks is expected to be in excess of $6 billion. But even that amount of Christmas cheer is not enough for the leaders of the New Democrats and the Bloc Québécois. They are calling on the Trudeau Liberals to spend even more and send checks to more people like students and seniors. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, and as always, our time is limited, so let's jump right into things. Professor Ian Lee is back from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. It's great to hear from you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Rob.
Well, the big story is the threat of tariffs. I suspect we'll be talking a lot about this today. What impact could an across-the-board 25% tariff on all exports to the United States, what impact could that have on our economy?
Well, it's going to be devastating. Just some big picture numbers. We're $2.5 trillion GDP. Many people say, we can stand up to the Americans. We're the same as them. This is delusional. They're $25 trillion. We're 1/10 the size of the U.S. The U.S. government spends about $8 trillion, which is almost triple the size, it's more than triple the size of the Canadian GDP. That's how enormous the U.S. is. Pierre Trudeau famously said, he got it right. Today there's so many people in what I call the Laurentian elites, they're just living in a bubble. They say, we're going to stand up, we're going to punch them in the nose, and we're going to make them feel the pain, as if we are the same size or equal of the U.S. Pierre Trudeau got it right 50 years ago. He said, we're the mouse, they're the elephant. Elephant sneezes, mouse catches pneumonia. He understood the power imbalance. I don't think they do in Ottawa right now in the federal government. I really don't. They're talking about a charm offensive to charm Trump, and it's all about what I'm now about to talk about. He is, I believe, from everything he said over the last many, many years, his book, The Art of the Deal, and how you got to go in and, and really whack them hard to soften them up, to the opponent that you're negotiating with to get them to become more willing to negotiate and give up some things. So I think this is a classic negotiating strategy of Trump. He is sending a shot across the bow before he even takes office on January the 20th. And he's chosen, I think, very deliberately Canada and the U.S., Canada and Mexico, because he sees these two countries as doing things that they've adopted policies, not the same policies. Mexico's issues with the U.S. are very different from ours. With Mexico, it's the crime and the illegal immigration. With us, it's a different set of issues. But because we're on the two borders, and we're doing things that he doesn't like, policy things, and so he's determined to change it. And I will point out, I think he's very aware that putting those tariffs in is completely illegal under CUSMA. And what he's basically doing is he's abrogating CUSMA. That's what he's doing by announcing this. If he does implement them, what he's saying is this is the end of CUSMA. Mm-hmm. So instead of Mr. Trudeau running around, first off saying everything is fine, everything's hunky-dory, I'm a Trump whisperer, which is delusional in itself, or saying we're going to put on a charm offensive, I'm hoping that there's some people around him that can basically tutor him. And I say this very seriously. And I'm hoping it's the premiers. And say, look, we have to enter reality. And we are facing the biggest existential crisis of our country, in the history of our country. And what we should be doing is countering to the Trump and saying, look, we're going to be really radical too. Everything is on the table. We propose renegotiating CUSMA now, not in 2 years from now, right now. The day after you enter office, January 21, we want to start renegotiating a new NAFTA, a new CUSMA.
Right. Okay.
Everything on the table.
If I could just jump in there, when you say everything is on the table, you're meaning things like supply management and whatnot.
No sacred cows.
No sacred cows.
Farm supply management goes up on the chopping block. So is the telecom bill that keeps out American cell phone companies so that our domestic phone companies can charge us the highest cell phone fees in the world and exploit us up the wazoo. It is the banks, which we keep out American banks very successfully. We keep out American airlines. And, of course, we've targeted American digital giants for special digital taxes, which drives Trump crazy because he said so. We've got to say the following to the Americans. I really deeply believe this, Rob. Okay, we're willing to put all our sacred cows on the table and give them up, but we want 100% access, no tariffs, no more games, guaranteed in writing in the treaty, no more softwood lumber tariffs on our BC firms, no more threats of tariffs, 100% access to your economy, and we will open up our economy where we protected it from American companies coming in. I don't think we have an alternative, because if we don't offer that, he's just going to cut us off. And we can't afford that. We'll become a third world country. We'll become Argentina.
Okay, why don't we stop here? When we come back, Mr. Poilievre, during his news conference today, spoke very strongly and said maybe even retaliatory tariffs might be on the table if he became prime minister. Want to ask you about that retaliation when we come back.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back with our weekly contributor, Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. So Pierre Poilievre had a news conference in addition to some remarks from Mr. Trudeau today. Let's listen to Pierre Poilievre talking about the threat of Trump tariffs on Canada. Go ahead.
In fact, our per capita GDP has dropped more than any other G7 country since the year before COVID. We have the most indebted households. We've had the worst housing inflation. A quarter of our people are in poverty. 2 million people line up in food banks. Food prices have risen 37% faster in Canada than in the United States of America. Our economy is teetering on the brink of collapse. And now we face this renewed threat. We need a plan to put Canada first on the economy and on security.
Okay, so he's talking about Canada first. He was later pressed on the potential for retaliatory tariffs. So let's retaliate against the Americans. Could you see it coming to that, Professor?
I hope not. I deeply hope not for Canada. There's this mythology in Canada. I'm reading it, And lots of Canadians are saying, look, we're going to stand up to those Americans. We're going to punch them in the face, and they're going to cry and scream in pain. Good God in heaven. Can anybody count? Does anybody know arithmetic anymore? The U.S. is $25 trillion. We are $2.5 trillion. We are a gnat, a mosquito on the back of the elephant. I know lots of Canadians don't want to hear that because they want to hear that we're just as big and tough as the Americans. And that's braggadocio. It's teenage male braggadocio. Okay? It is. It's nonsense on stilts. I want to quote Taylor Swift. And I don't, I'm not a fan. I mean, I'm a fan of hers only for one reason, because my granddaughters love her, so therefore I love, I am too. Even though I don't listen to her music. But she's got one great song, I think. She's got many great songs, but she's got one I really like. It's called Shake It Off. Anything we do to the Americans, anything we do to the Americans, they'll just shake it off. They're so huge. They're so enormous. Did you know that the American government spends almost 3 times the GDP of Canada? They spend $8 trillion. Our GDP is $2.5 trillion. That's just the government. And that's just the U.S. government. They're so large that anyone who thinks that we can bring the Americans to their knees, little mosquito on the back of elephant, 2-ton elephant, we are living in an alternate delusional world. Ain't gonna happen.
Let me ask you this. We only have about a minute or so left. Why would Trump want tariffs? I mean, surely to goodness he knows that would mean higher costs for Americans. I'm sure someone has explained this to him, and yet it doesn't. Okay, go ahead.
Explain it. I will. I'll explain it very quickly. First off, of course, it's going to cost some small number of businesses in the United States. It'll cost them more. No question about it. So all they'll do, guess what they'll do? Because the price of the tariffs has driven the product up. Well, they'll turn around, those companies that are buying Canadian stuff, and say, oh, I'm going to find a supplier in the States, which is what Trump wants, by the way. He's trying to bring home business back to America. So he's trying to force, without legislating it per se, saying you may not buy from Canadians, he's making it so costly that the buyers on the American side, the companies that buy the stuff from Canada, they'll go and find it either from American producers inside the States or from some other country that exports to the States that isn't subject to the tariffs. Okay, so the idea that it's going to hurt the Americans in any macroscopic way or major way is delusional. It'll hurt a few businesses in a few parts, and maybe a couple of them will go bankrupt. Big deal. The U.S. is so enormous, you won't even notice it. It won't even show up on the GDP numbers. So what I'm saying is he's trying to change and secondly, I believe he's trying to change the behavior. I don't think he's trying to bring Canada down to its knees. I don't believe he's trying to destroy Canada. What he's trying to do is say, you have done things to discriminate against our American companies for many, many years, and I've had it, and it's over. You're not going to free ride on us anymore for our security. We pay all the bills, and you get the benefit of the security protection. You're going to pay that 2%, or we're going to cut you off to access to our economy that everybody in the world wants access to. And you're going to stop discriminating against American phone companies and banks and dairy, because if you don't, we're going to cut you off. Did you everybody get that? Capiche, everybody? That's all he's saying. I'm not here to defend him. It's just what he's saying is so obvious. It's so transparent, and we are so thick, we don't get it. We don't understand what he's saying to us. Change,
I got you.
Or you will not get access to our economy anymore. Got it?
Got to go.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio. The Newsday Panel.
Yes, it is time for our Newsday Panel with Neil Brody, longtime conservative strategist. Spent some time in the Harper PMO. Hope you're well, Neil. Welcome back.
I am. Thanks, Rob.
Yep, thank you. Good to hear from you. Ashton Arsenault is a partner at Crestview Strategy based in Ottawa. Hi there, Ashton. Welcome back.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm good. So let's talk about the tariff threat from Donald Trump. What does Canada do now, Neil Brody?
Well, first, we have to understand that this is not a trade issue. This is a homeland security issue for the United States. You and I talked a few weeks ago about after the U.S. election, and I mentioned that I had hoped the Canadian government had put together a list of American interests and how Canada can contribute to those interests. As I say, I watch Fox News so that you and your listeners don't have to. And the number one issue for American Republicans was, and still is, illegal immigration. And this is a serious issue, big boy, big girl politics. And the U.S. has used a very big signal, 25% tariff, to solve a serious problem in their mind, uncontrolled migration. So Justin Trudeau, he has to put on his big boy pants, stop playing around with GST holidays and $200 checks, and put together a real meaningful package of immigration and public safety initiatives that come into effect, early next year, 2025, that he can shop to American politicians and the American executive to show that they're serious about this issue on behalf of the Americans. The Americans look at Fortress North America. It's nice that I think the government went out earlier today and said they'll bolster, border crossings or something like that. But I think where the government has to go is, how do we bolster immigration into this country so that we can go to the U.S. and say, listen, we're part of this North American fortress that you like, and we're going to ensure that not only are we controlling the border between our two countries, we're in better control of our own border.
Okay, very interesting. What do you think about that analysis? It's not a trade issue, it's a homeland security issue. Ashton?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's correct. These are very serious threats, and I think, President-elect Trump has shown a history of following through on the things that he says he's going to do. What it says to me more than anything else is that we can't exactly whistle past the graveyard and rest on our laurels that polite Canada will always get preferential treatment. I think that's over. And so my vantage point on all of it at the moment is it's a negotiation strategy. I consider it an opening position, a firm one with serious consequences, obviously, but an opening position nonetheless. And the reality is, following through on this threat, as outlined, would lead to a good deal of pain and suffering for American people, quite frankly. The price spikes would be profound. And taking all of that into account, Trump is pretty clear in what he wants to see. And I think Neil hit the nail right on the head. The Liberal government has been pretty weak in a couple of these areas, controlling immigration, the illegal supply of drugs. It's hardly a secret. And so, and of course, you're sort of wondering, well, what other trade irritants would potentially be politically sensitive in Canada? There's a big one, supply management. We know the Americans absolutely hate it. They always have. Yep. But we also have more energy resources we should be sending their way, that being the Americans. And so what I think you're going to see here, hopefully, is intense negotiations behind the scenes on what sort of specific benchmarks they need to hit between now and January 20th when Trump comes to office.
Neil, what do you think the chances are that statement posted on social media last night caught Cabinet off guard? Do you think they should be surprised by any of what they heard from Trump or saw from Trump yesterday on social media?
It probably did. This government, the Trudeau government, spent 4 years dealing with the Trump White House. I think they were overjoyed when Mr. Biden won the presidency 4 years ago, and they were able to relax. And even though the United States still had its own interests under Mr. Biden, they were more aligned between the two political parties, the Liberals and the Democrats. I see no evidence that when it became apparent that the Republican nominee for president was going to be Donald Trump about 18 months ago, 24 months ago, things were pointing in that direction. I don't get any sense that the Liberal government or anybody, Justin Trudeau or anybody in his office, Justin Trudeau should have maybe reached out to Donald Trump and said, hey, I see you're running for president again. I'd really not like to see you as president, but, good luck. And if you are president, I'm here ready to talk to you, or have people from his cabinet talk to people from the Trump campaign, or people from his office talk to the Trump campaign to get ready for this eventuality. You hope for the best. In Mr. Trudeau's case, I assume that's a Democratic Party win in the United States, but you have to prepare for the worst. And like I said, the Liberal Party could have assigned one person to watch Fox News for 4 years and gotten, a very clear idea of what the Republican Party was going to be concerned about.
Could have got the vibe, so to speak, Neil.
Yeah,
could have got the vibe. Okay.
And all of a sudden, it's all hands on deck, and we're going to have a meeting on Wednesday about this with the premiers, and we'll try and figure something out. It's kind of too late now, although they do have to do it.
Okay. What do you think about this? I mean, it shouldn't come as a surprise that Mr. Trump would do something like this, given how he's talked about issues like illegal immigration and the scourge of drug addiction in the United States. It shouldn't come as a total surprise, and his love of tariffs, Ashton.
I don't know how it comes as a surprise at all. I mean, he's been campaigning on this for, as Neil points out, 2 years. He's been threatening tariffs at every single stump speech he has given throughout the campaign. The only thing that might have come as a surprise is a post on Truth Social at 9:00 at night on a Monday night, perhaps. Maybe that's the surprise. But the act surprise that the president-elect is threatening tariffs on his two closest trading partners is not particularly surprising to me. And I think, Neil, once again, his analysis was spot on. They had ample time to prepare and plan accordingly. They did not do that. They hoped for the best rather than preparing for the worst.
Okay, we'll be right back. I do want to talk a little bit about the comments from Doug Ford today. The Ontario Premier's really taken it upon himself to assume a leadership role in all of this.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
So again, it's our Newsday panel with longtime Conservative strategist Neil Brody and from Crestview Strategy in Ottawa, partner there, Ashton Arsenault. Let's listen to a little bit of Doug Ford and some heated remarks today from the Ontario Premier on the threat of tariffs from a Trump administration. Go ahead, Dave.
I found his comments unfair. I found them insulting. It's like a family member stabbing you right in the heart. I spent a lot of time in the U.S., and I have yet to talk to one American that has any issue with Canadians. We see drugs flow from Mexico, coming up through California, in through BC, into Alberta, into Ontario, and what we need to do is take that threat seriously. I had a conversation with the Prime Minister after he spoke to President-elect Trump last night. The threat is serious. We need to do better on our borders. We need to give the resources to CBSA, which are fine people. And I know, talking to other premiers last night, that we will do everything we can as provincial governments and territorial governments to secure our borders.
So again, Doug Ford, the Ontario Premier. What do you think about what you're hearing from Premier Ford there, Ashton?
Well, first of all, I think it was a remarkably good hit. So good prep in advance of that media avail for sure. But, I mean, it's the same consistent themes that the president-elect is talking about. So I think Doug Ford is sort of accurately weaving the yarn here that the irritant isn't necessarily trade-related at the end of the day. It's more about border security and more about stopping the illegal supply of drugs. So I think, again, just a really good media hit. And, of course, if you are the Premier of Ontario, I think there's a reasonable expectation that you step up when we're talking about Canadian domestic politics. And he is, in terms of his tone right now, pretty dead on.
I mean, Neil, you had some praise for Premier Ford last week when we were talking about issues like this. I listened to that. I almost want to send him to Mar-a-Lago. What do you think, Neil?
Well, I'll say two things. It's no secret that rumblings around Queen's Park are that there will be a spring election. And so who better to campaign against in a spring election than Justin Trudeau, who's not doing enough to protect the working men and women of Ontario by completely, ignoring the United States, needs and wants, and having a 25% tariff slapped on the goods and services that Ontarians provide the United States. It's Mr. Ford's not taking on Mr. Trump in this. He's taking on Justin Trudeau, and Ashton's quite right. Ashton's very good political mind. He talked about the pace and pivot. Mr. Ford's talking the same language that Mr. Trump is talking, and then that's pacing. So you talk the same language, and then you pivot to the way that you want it to go. It's like, well, we kind of agree with Mr. Trump, and we really like Mr. Trudeau to do something about illegal drugs coming into Canada and fix our trade problems. So it's a nice bit of political maneuvering for Mr. Ford, and I look forward to further media availability with him on this topic.
What do you think about what you're hearing, Ashton, from Mr. Poilievre, fight fire with fire, Canada first, not ruling out even the possibility of retaliatory tariffs? What do you think about what Mr. Poilievre is saying here?
Yeah, it was an interesting media avail. I think he said a couple of different things that I want to touch on. So, I mean, obviously, he has stated policy on the record, which is more aligned, certainly, with the incoming administration than the existing administration. You could point to the carbon tax, you can point to emissions caps. But then he kind of flipped the script a little bit and said, well, you know what, we actually have a lot of things in terms of goods and services that the Americans actually want more of. And he pointed to our energy industry in particular. So I thought, at the end of the day, he's probably going to have to flush out that position a little bit more, because it was more or less reliant on existing talking points and policy pieces that are probably going to win the day for him electorally here in Canada. But it was very much, to use your parlance, let's fight fire with fire, and let's do more business with the Americans in the way that they want to do business with us. So I thought that was interesting.
Quick comment there, Neil.
Well, based on current polls, Mr. Poilievre will become Prime Minister of Canada after the next election. Whether that's sooner or later, I don't know, but we know it's going to be no later than October next year. And so Mr. Poilievre at some point will be sitting across the table from Donald Trump, trying to promote Canadian interests to the United States. And so this isn't in opposition, this isn't a bad way to get your feet wet in that arena without any real dire consequences for what you say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, when we come back, what the heck is a vibe session? Christopher Freeland's take on Canadians suffering from economic anxiety. It's a vibe session. Not a recession, not a deeper. It's a vibe session.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
With Neil Brody and Ashton Arsenault and Christopher Freeland, Canada's Minister of Finance, offering a new turn of phrase on the economic anxiety some Canadians are feeling. It's not a recession. It's a vibe session. It's a vibe session. Here's the Minister of Finance.
There is a disconnect between the really positive economic news, the fact that the Canadian economy does appear set for a soft landing. That's good news. But Canadians aren't feeling it, and that is shaping their economic behavior in ways that are not great for the Canadian economy. People have been talking about a vibe session and how that is a challenge for the Canadian economy.
Okay. People have been talking about a vibe session. She's the only person I've heard talking about a vibe session. In fact, before the Trump tariff news took off, I thought this would be the biggest political story of the day. Vibe session. Look, what do you make of that? Neil Brody, what do you make of that?
Well, listen, I'm going to say something that Ashton knows. Ashton was a director of issues and management during the Harper years, great at his job. The first thing you want to do in political communications is not blame Canadians for something. Ms. Freeland immediately comes out and says the Canadian economy would be doing so much better if Canadians were just a little smarter. That's a ridiculously bad take on any topic. On top of that, I can't believe the Liberal government keeps talking about trying to become better communicators. Yet they are so oblivious to the plight of Canadians who have seen prices go up 20, 25, 30% over the last couple of years. And the Liberal Party is so oblivious to how to communicate to Canadians who are feeling the pinch in a way that makes you feel like the government is actually doing something for them. Nothing says downtown Liberal elite more than saying you have to adjust your vibe and drop one or two streaming services, and everything will be great. Like it boggles my mind.
Boggles the mind. Okay. Is your mind boggled, Ashton?
Well, I first want to congratulate the Liberal Party communication staffer that snuck that across the goal line. That's an all-timer for sure. Honestly, the entire policy announcement around the GSP holiday and cutting random checks just screams to me that the government is grasping at straws. The ideas tank is running on empty. And it's actually a bit bewildering to me that this is what it's come to. And so from the makers of the now infamous She Session, because we can't forget that one, we're bringing you the Vibe Session because Canadians aren't feeling all that good. Well, the Deputy Prime Minister got one thing right there. Canadians aren't feeling that good, but what she failed to do was take any responsibility for her government's role in that. The government's solution to essentially doubled housing costs, doubled food costs, so on and so forth, is a not yet guaranteed holiday from your persistent pain and suffering. It's the government's way of essentially saying, hey, look, take a chill pill without actually addressing any of the problems that's leading to all of the misery. It's tone deaf and it's crass. And should this holiday, and you can't see my air quotes because we're on the radio, come to pass, it'll be long forgotten before this government is voted out of office and potentially relegated to fourth place in the House of Commons.
Wow. Okay. Great to hear from both of you today. Thank you so much. My gosh, so much happening right now. Great to hear from you.
Always a pleasure, Rob.
Yeah, bye-bye. Neil Brody is a longtime conservative strategist, spent some time in the Harper PMO, as did Ashton Arsenault. He is partner at Crestview Strategies, also in Ottawa. Okay, the Talkback is coming up. We want to talk about these two big stories today, the Trump tariff threat and Chrystia Freeland's take on Canadians who are struggling to make ends meet right now. Her take is the economy's not that bad. It's just the vibe is wrong. It's a vibe session. It's not a recession. It's a vibe session. It's about the vibes. Dude.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day, and we have big issues to talk about today. Two big things in the mix. Trump's threat of tariffs. And we also have how the Liberals think you feel about the economy. We'd really like to know your thoughts on both issues. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Every line is available right now. Get in and join the conversation. So Donald Trump, President-elect of the United States, is threatening Canada and Mexico with an across-the-board 25% tariff on everything Canada exports to the United States. What do you think about that? Unless certain conditions are met. Unless certain things are taken care of. Immigration and drug-related issues. Economically, just about all the experts agree it would be terrible for the Canadian economy. It wouldn't be great for the Americans either, but it'd be really bad for the Canadian economy if these tariffs ever came into force. I mean, let's face it, it's by far our most important trading relationship. The Canadian economy would be in rough shape if these tariffs ever came to pass. Wouldn't be great for the Americans. They'd pay more for the goods that we send to the United States. So, look, I'd really love to have your take here. What do you think is going on here? What do you think is going on here with Donald Trump, and what confidence do you have that the current government that we have in Ottawa can come up with a plan that can convince Donald Trump that these tariffs aren't necessary? My goodness, share your thoughts, please. It is very, very important. 1-833-668-2577. Statement posted to social media last night. Trump slammed both Canada and Mexico being threatened with these tariffs, but Trump slammed Canada's open borders. Says it's leading to deadly drugs being imported into the United States. He talked about illegal immigration. from Canada to the United States. Trump calls it an invasion. The United States is being invaded, he said. His words, not mine. His words, not mine. So if the Trudeau government can't somehow placate the Trump administration, somehow convince the Trump administration that it has some kind of plan to deal with these two issues, bam, imagine it. And across the board, 25% tariff on everything that we send to the United States. And Trump said he would do it as his first order of business, first day in office. What do you think Trump is up to here, everyone? And how much confidence do you have that the Trudeau government will be able to prevent these tariffs from ever coming into effect? I mean, that's the big issue. That's really the biggest issue of the day. But another issue is the state of our economy, how you feel about the economy, and how the government thinks you feel about the economy. Really like to know your thoughts on what Chrystia Freeland said yesterday. The Minister of Finance at a news conference, Chrystia Freeland used a phrase I hadn't heard before. She said Canada's not in a recession. The economy is actually doing very well, but Canadians are in a vibe session. It's a vibe session. She claimed the economy is actually doing pretty well. It's just that Canadians are feeling it. It's about vibes. It's a vibe session. What do you think about that claim from the federal Minister of Finance? That the economy is actually holding up pretty well. It's just that you're not really feeling it. We're not in a recession. We're in a vibe session. Is that how you feel about the economy these days? Just giving you bad vibes? I suppose, trying to be charitable here. Maybe Chrystia Freeland's looking at some economic data points. Inflation has cooled. It's not 8% anymore. It's 2%. Maybe she's looking at interest rates not as high as they were 2 years ago, things like that. But it seems to ignore a lot of, and I hear it a lot from callers, the hardship that Canadians are facing these days. I mean, we have a story in the news today, beef prices at an all-time high. Rents may have softened a little bit, but they're still way higher than they used to be. And people shopping for mortgages, I mean, most of the people that I talk to in the mortgage business, I mean, they've told us this plain as day. 2% mortgage rates, gone. Gone. And housing prices may have come down a little bit, but affordability hasn't really improved because the mortgage rates are so much higher. So we have the finance minister calling this period that we are in with the Canadian economy a vibe session. It's not a recession, certainly not a depression. It's a vibe session. It's about feelings. It's how you feel about the economy. I just want to know if you think she's on the right track or the wrong track. 1-833-668-2577. All of our phone lines are available right now. We'd love to hear from you. Talkback on a Tuesday. If you have never called us before, just mention that to our call screener. We'll make your call a priority. Your phone calls are just ahead. 1-833-668-2577.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Two topics up for discussion today. Donald Trump threatening Canada and Mexico, but let's focus on Canada. Across the board, 25% tariffs on all Canadian exports to the United States. He says Canada has to do something about open borders, leading to increased drug trafficking, illegal immigration into the United States. What is Trump up to here? How confident are you that our government in Ottawa can prevent these tariffs from seeing the light of day? And the federal finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, claimed our economy is doing okay. It's just you're not feeling it. She described the economy as being in a vibe session, not a recession, a vibe session. What do you think about those remarks? Is she onto something? Is she off base? Is the economy actually doing okay? It's just the vibes are off. What the heck, right? 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. First-time caller, Bill in Ayr, Ontario. Bill. Hi there, Bill.
How are you today?
I'm good, Bill. How are you?
Oh, just disgusting.
Why is that, sir?
that idiot down below the border there is just flexing his little pea brain to show all the people down there that he can actually do it.
Okay. And, well, what do you think about what he's threatening?
What do I think? I think Canada should triple that tariff for anything coming up here from the U.S.
Okay, you realize, though, if that happened and whatever was imported into the United States into Canada would mean higher prices for you, Bill.
You know what?
Yeah.
If it's going to settle that idiot down, I'd be happy with that.
Right, but I mean, I guess to, some people's point, I mean, their economy is, 10 times the size of the Canadian economy. It's so important, our relationship between our two countries. Should we not try to be in the good graces of the Americans, no matter what administration happens to be in power, sir? Just for the sake of our economic welfare?
So what you're saying is we should bow down to his every whim?
Well, let's think about what he is demanding. Are you happy with the current situation with immigration?
Am I happy here in Canada with the current situation?
Yeah,
no,
with immigration.
But then when he starts shipping everybody back, where do you think most of them are going to come?
Right, and don't you think the Canadian government should have a plan to deal with that if that is an eventuality?
Well, I kind of look at the president down there with his tiny little brain and our fearless leader up here with his tiny little brain.
Okay. You think
Trudeau
it's the blind leading the blind,
anything.
Bill? It's the blind leading the blind leading the blind. Is that how you kind of view it?
Well, I'd put it in different words, but yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. All right. Well, we are on the radio, sir. So
that's why
maybe.
I wouldn't put it in different
right.
words.
Okay. I appreciate that. I must ask you about these remarks from Chrystia Freeland that the economy is actually doing okay. It's just Canadians don't have the right vibes about the economy.
Yeah, we don't have the right vibe because we got a liberal government. Now, There's an old saying. I won't say the exact words for the old saying, but bullcrap baffles brains, but only for so long. I can't understand how he's baffled everybody's brains for so long.
All right. Well, look, Bill, I appreciate your call, and I appreciate you being radio friendly today with some of your remarks. It's good to hear from you.
I got one more thing for you.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Are you the Mustang man?
No, I'm not a Mustang man. No, I've never had a Mustang.
Okay.
No. Thank you, though. No, don't own a Mustang. Thank you, though, Bill. Chris in Alberta. Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. Yeah. So we are actually immigrants from Belgium, and we came in 2010 to Alberta.
Okay.
And what I have a totally different view, because I'm coming out of a European country. So I think this is the worst thing that could happen, what happened there in the States, because we did all the hassle for coming to Canada. It took us almost 4 years for becoming permanent residents. We had to prove, we had to do. I think Canada is very good country for coming in. I'm so happy to be here. We suffered hard to stay here. We had to work our butt off. It's like weird to say, but it was like we had to work. We're still working. I think there's work enough in Canada. The part is that some people want to start like away on the high, don't want to work themselves up from the ground. And I think this is very bad that this is going to happen, because I know we were truck drivers, so my husband is still truck driver, goes all the time over the border. It is going to be hurting the Canadian economy very badly. So I would say don't agree with it. Just fight it back. And I heard it before. Double the same thing, do the same, and try to talk first. So that's my idea about it. So their immigration program is good. I know there's illegal traffic, but I think it's coming more from the south than it comes in Canada because you don't slip through that checkpoint. You cannot come anywhere into Canada without a properly check. So you checked your question before you come in. When people cross the borders on lines where there's no thing, but that happens all the time in the States. And we traveled until southern of Texas.
Right. So you think the illegal immigration system, the illegal immigration situation, that's more about Mexico than Canada? Is that what you're saying, Chris?
I think so.
You think so? Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me ask you, how confident would you say that the current government in Ottawa can prevent these tariffs from coming into effect? There's still some time here.
Like I said in the beginning, how you can... I informed myself about Mr. Trump, and I'm not confident with that part. So
You're not
I
confident,
think,
okay.
No, they need to be, like Canada should, they should take the point and don't give it, okay, you need to talk. It needs to be diplomatic because it's a neighbor, and there's very much travel back and forward. But when they're going to give in or just let them do, no, they need to be firm on it.
Need to be firm, need to be tough. Okay, all right. Yeah. All right. Very interesting, Chris. Thank you for your call in Alberta today. Good to hear from you today. Just getting going here on the Tuesday Talkback. Donald Trump threatening Canada with tariffs, big tariffs across the board, 25% on all of our exports to the United States, unless we do something, he says, about open borders, illegal immigration, drug trafficking. And the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, with some eyebrow-raising remarks. Canadian economy's doing okay. It's just you don't have the right vibe. It's a vibe session. It's not a recession. Your thoughts, please.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Donald Trump threatening Canada with across-the-board tariffs. Chrystia Freeland describing the Canadian economy as being in a vibe session. Lots to talk about today. Danny in Calgary. Hi, Danny.
Good morning. I guess it's afternoon where you are, maybe.
Yes, it is early afternoon here, Danny. Thank you for calling. Your reaction to these big news stories today, please.
So the tariff would be just tremendously, like a huge hit to our economy, which is already, I think, limping along. It's not in a vibe funk, but anyway, I think that would be just devastating. And I think the way Trump operates is he's just a bully, and that's how he has been his whole life. I don't know his whole life, but in terms of the public leadership, that's how he operates. The problem is our current government does not. They don't have what it takes to stand up to that at all. I have zero confidence in their ability to stand up to that kind of behavior. So we take our licks until there's finally an election. That's unfortunately what I would see happening.
Okay. So then you're more hopeful that maybe Poilievre and Trump would see more eye to eye and maybe could prevent some of the economic carnage that could be ahead for Canada if we had tariffs like this?
Well, and I don't know that I know Poilievre's policies. I know he's very anti-Trump, so I align with him on that front, but I don't know his policies well enough. Unfortunately, I feel like there's a lot of complaining, but
Poilievre came out today and he seemed to say, Poilievre came out today and he's just kind of said, I'm just unapologetically pro-Canadian. I'm Canada first. And if that means we even have to retaliate with tariffs of our own, and if it comes to that, then maybe that's what we should do. That's what he was saying.
Well, at least
today.
that's something, right? It's more leadership. It's more straightforward talk, I think, than dancing around. I have been best friends with a friend of mine who lives in Ontario. We could never talk politics, and just this week I said, "Okay, do you finally believe me now that we've got to get rid of Trudeau?" And she said, "Okay, yeah, I see now."
Really? Okay, isn't that interesting?
So it's been years that, I'm like, okay, not to paint all of Eastern Canada with a bad brush, which Albertans get blamed for. But I'm like, we've been saying this for years out here now. Now do you believe me? And she said, yeah, you're right.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
absolutely.
all right.
So
One
anyway,
convert at a time, I guess, for you, Danny. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Sean, we only have about, less than a minute left. So I better stop here, but Sean, I will bring you on right after the news if you're willing to hang on the line.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Donald Trump is threatening Canada with an across-the-board 25% tariff on all Canadian exports to the United States unless, he says, Canada does something about open borders. What do you think about that? Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland claimed the Canadian economy is doing okay. Canadians just aren't feeling it. She described the economy as being in a vibe session, not a recession. I don't know. Maybe she's on to something. Maybe she's way off the mark. I'd love to know your opinion. 1-833-668-2577 to Sean in Cambridge as promised. Sean, are you there?
I am.
Yes. Thank you for waiting. What's your opinion here, Sean?
Well, this we currently have this agreement with the United States and Mexico that Donald Trump himself insisted on negotiating the last time he was the orange in chief. Now he. And part of the agreement is that none of the others shall put tariff on any of the others. So, he's proven himself to be unreliable, unstable, and not able to keep to agreements. So I'm thinking even if we do go along with him, he's just not trustworthy. So we really need to cast our net farther sea to find other trade partners, because honestly, as long as Donald Trump is in power, the U.S. cannot be trusted. Simple as that. He's just not a trustworthy person.
Trade diversification.
Yeah, I think it's a necessity with him in power. He's a bully. He's unstable. He just can't be trusted. Simple as that. And strategic. I mean, could you we're supposed to be their friends? Could you imagine if we were their enemies? I mean, I'm pretty sure the only country he actually likes is Russia, because they pretty much own him. But I mean, wow, he's violating a treaty that he was instrumental in creating, so he can't be trusted.
Well, this has been certainly a talking point from the Liberals in Ottawa that the current free trade agreement between the three countries was his deal, negotiated at the behest of him, signed by him.
Yeah.
So, a valid point that you make. You have any comment about Chrystia Freeland saying we're not in a recession or anything? The economy's actually not doing too bad. It's just the vibe is not right. It's a vibe session.
Well, you know what? I get, personally, personally myself, I'm not doing too bad. But I know a lot of people that are doing very badly. And we are in sort of a dichotomy right now. We have people that are doing badly and people that are doing poorly. And it strikes me a lot of people have the absolutely wrong skills. And I think our government's done a very poor job of managing. They have done a very poor job of ensuring people have the right skills. They are not encouraging people to take the right programs. They are not providing education. Our government needs to get off its butt and provide education to people. They need to encourage them to take
education that matches the skills that are in demand in the modern workforce. You're saying, right?
Why are people taking stuff like communications? Stuff like that. We need people to take courses, that actually make stuff, build stuff, do stuff.
Yeah. There you go. It's such a great point that you make. Okay. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Yeah. Why would somebody take communications? David, don't you ask yourself that every day? Why would somebody take
That's too late for me on that one.
Yeah. I'm on the back nine. Man, oh man, should have been a plumber. Okay. 1-833-668-2577, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Mike, you're on the line. Mike, share your thoughts, please. It's a hot news day.
Yeah. Interesting calls this morning. On Trump, I got to say, my initial gut reaction, and it's all on an emotional level, is retaliate.
Retaliate, okay.
Yeah, sure, why not? Let's slap an export tax on the things we ship to the States. It's just a thought. And then I started thinking things through, and I said, no, that won't. We ship oil to the States, they ship gas back to us. So we send electricity to the States. When we need it, we get it back from them as well. So that's not going to work. I think this is just, I think you're right. This is a security issue, not a trade issue. And he's waving the carrot and the stick is a baseball bat with a 6-inch spikes in it.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Yeah. That was Neil Brody's point. We can't view this through the trade lens. We have to view it as an issue of national security, and that if you listen to the Republicans in the United States, what's big for them? Illegal immigration.
And this is not the first time he's done.
Borders, repeated, ad nauseum by Trump. Right. So.
Yeah. And it's not the first time he's done this. He did this with aluminum.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any thoughts on being in a vibe session? You're in a vibe session. Did you know you were in a vibe session? Apparently, all the time.
I'm in a vibe session. I think. Okay, the economy is a big thing. It's different things to different people, and to the guy on the street, it's the food he buys and the gas he purchases and things like that. But the economy is a bigger thing, and I think she's right in a way. I mean, mortgage rates are going down, the economy is going, or GDP is going up, unemployment is down. So there are good things happening. But
unemployment was going up, and now it's kind of flatlined, to tell you the way. I mean, we're at 6.5% unemployment right now.
Yeah, well, which isn't bad, really. I mean, historically,
it's about average, I guess.
Yeah,
it's been lower, it's been higher, right?
It's a perception thing. I'm okay. But I know people aren't okay.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you for your call
right.
in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia today, Mike. Got some ancestors in Lunenburg, and my wife as well. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577 is Talkback. Back on the phones right after this.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On Trump's tariff threat and Chrystia Freeland's vibe session remark. Let's get right back to it here. Ernie in Kitchener. Hi, Ernie. Are you with me?
A quick question for you. So is Trump just being a bad guy here, or why is he doing this, Rob? What did he say we have to do?
He says that we have to crack down on illegal immigration from Canada to the United States. His border czar has said that the northern border is a national security threat to the United States, and he's also concerned about an increase in drug trafficking, cross-border drug trafficking, specifically having to do with fentanyl. That's what he says. We have to have a plan to secure the border, is what he wants Canada to come up with.
Well, let's take a look at our resume here.
Okay.
So before, even right after the election, that's when Trudeau made a statement about immigration saying that, we kind of made some mistakes. Yes. How many Canadian citizens, I shouldn't say Canadian citizens, how many people have we let in through Canada that have been busted in the U.S. through either some terrorist crimes or doing crimes there that were brought in through our immigration system?
Well, there was one high-profile case that was in the news about someone they stopped who wanted to go to the United States and attack Jews in New York City. You remember that story? It was in the news, right?
Right. So I'm just looking at a record here. It wasn't I could just imagine the phone call. The phone call wasn't, hey, guys, you need to step this up, do a better job. It was more or less like, we're looking at your resume. And my concern was, when he won the election, was all these illegals from the U.S. were going to come to Canada, and we were just going to open up our doors and say, you know what, Trump's a bad guy, come to Canada, we'll take you, And I think that's what Trump was kind of thinking too. He's almost looking at our past record and looking at our resume, how we've dealt with immigration, and he sees the crisis here. He's like, guys, I can't even talk to you. This is what I'm going to do, and this is what's going to happen. Is he being a bully? 100% he's being a bully. But if you look at our track record and what we've proposed, do I blame him for what he's doing? Do I like it as Canadian? No, I don't. But I'm just looking at basically our resume to him.
Okay. So you don't think he's totally offside. You admit he's being a bit of a bully, but you don't think he's totally offside. He wants Canada to smarten up on national security issues.
Well, basically what because it would be great for if this forces us to actually increase and be smarter about our border securities and our immigration policies, 100%.
And that's
I see it more or less as he's also, too, that was one of the biggest issues, the economy, and that was the biggest issues in the U.S. election. And this is one of those ways that he's basically saying, this is how I'm fixing it for my people. He's showing the people that he's working these concerns that they have. Is it hurting us? Yes. But have we allowed some of that stuff to happen on that side? Yes. Also, too, the Mexican president now, there's caravans going to the U.S. that she's stopped them. So you can already see the impact there. It's basically saying, I got to stop these people from going there. So you can see the impact already when he's not even in office yet.
All right. Interesting. Do you feel as though you were in a vibe session?
Well, I was really vibing my Disney Plus, and then I canceled it when she told me to because I'd be able to pay my bills. So, Rob, no matter how I'm feeling, I can look at the numbers on the piece of paper, and the numbers are not very good right now for all Canadians. I feel that for everybody else. So.
But the vibe is not good. Okay, thank you. 1-833-668-2577. That's Ernie in Kitchener. Laura is in Halifax. Thanks for calling, Laura. You're on the air. Go ahead, Laura. What's your opinion here?
Hi there. I'm just calling about Chrystia Freeland's comment.
Yes.
And basically, I mean, what a tone-deaf thing to say.
Why do you say that?
Because we're not vibing with the economy. Like, we're not feeling it. Even if you're going to say it, put it in better words. I mean, I'm a young family, and me and my husband, we do fairly well, and I just can't imagine how people are making it happen, and just for her to say something like that we're not vibing with the economy, I mean, how much does she make per year?
In excess of 200,000. In excess of 200,000.
Okay, she's vibing with the economy. That's great, Chrystia, but none of the rest of us are vibing with the economy. Like, why don't you tell that to people who are hungry and they're struggling to survive? I just find that so tone deaf to say something like that. It just enrages me.
The whole thing was set up as, because they're getting lots of questions about, why are you giving $250 in a Christmas bonus to somebody who is making $149,000 a year? Okay. Why are you taking the GST off of video game consoles that cost like $500, $600?
Exactly.
So her whole thing was, we think the economy is improving, but that Canadians could use a little help. They need some money to tide them over until things really, ramp up and the economy is really firing on all cylinders. The economy is actually not that bad. It's just, it's a vibe thing. We're just not getting the right vibes about the economic performance. I thought it just kind of lacked empathy to me.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm trying to say. We're not vibing with it. I wonder what the homeless people think about that. Oh, sorry, I'm not vibing with the economy. I go to the grocery store and I get instant anxiety, and I tend to think that we make a fair amount of money, and I still look at the prices and I think, my God, how could anybody survive? It's just, like any other, no, I shouldn't say any other, but like most politicians, it's tone deaf. It's absolutely ridiculous. That just enrages me.
Thank you. Thank you for your call. Yeah, great call. Okay, we'll stop here. And if you're on the line, you're on the air. So just hang on and we'll get to you before the top of the hour news break. I promise you that.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Dawn in Calgary, you're up next. Dawn, what's your opinion on Trump threatening tariffs or the vibe session? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Rob.
Hi, Dawn.
I kind of think it's more just a threat because we do have the free trade agreement. I think it's more targeted at Mexico than Canada.
Okay. He has Reuters news service is just reporting now that even oil wouldn't be spared from a 25% tariff, Don. Even all that Alberta oil that is sent to the United States could face a 25% tariff.
Yeah, but that's why I say thinking it's more of a threat right now, and it's trying to kind of light a fire under Trudeau on the other two topics.
Right.
He wants Canada to clean up.
which I agree with. I think we do need to look at some of those things. And, I mean, we've been taking in way too many immigrants here in the last year or two. And
even the government agrees with you on that front now. Yeah.
And it's definitely hurting everything, the housing and more traffic and just, everything.
So if you think then, Don, that it's kind of a shot across the bow, like, hey, Trudeau, get your act together on things like the immigration file, open borders, the drug trafficking, national security concerns, all of this stuff, how confident are you that the Trudeau government can come up with a plan to kind of please them? Please the administration. You're not.
Sorry, Rob. I'm not confident in the Trudeau government coming up with any kind of a plan.
Right.
It takes them way too long to implement everything, even if they did come up with a plan. And two, I don't think that's high on Trudeau's priority. Like, if he had his priorities right, he'd quit spending money and try to get try to get a line on the economy and the inflation.
Well, the economy, that's just bad vibes. You're just got bad vibes.
And it's really hard not to laugh at that comment. Like, I get a bad vibe every time I go get groceries.
Me too. Every time I think, maybe this is the week I'll buy some beef. No, just a bad vibe. Pork, I guess it is again this week. Thank you. All right, Don, I got you. Thank you. Let's go to, is it Lace in Harrison, Ontario? Lace?
Yeah, it is. How are you?
Yeah, hi there. I'm good. Thank you for calling. What's your opinion here, please?
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes I think it takes a firm approach to create, meaningful change. And I believe that Donald Trump's proposed tariffs kind of reflect that. I mean, Canada's been struggling for years under the Trudeau government. Poor leadership has led to these significant issues like uncontrolled immigration and inadequate action on the drug crisis. And sometimes it takes external pressure like these tariffs to push for better policies and accountability. And so as much as I know it would hurt us significantly, I'm hoping that our government could rally. Now, I have absolutely no confidence in the Trudeau government.
No confidence, though, right? Yeah.
To do that. But maybe if enough Canadians would realize that this is how we suffer under the Trudeau government, perhaps this would be reflected in the next election.
Okay, really interesting. Really interesting. So, shot across the bow, kind of a message. You have to smarten up on a couple of really key issues here. But in terms of actually seeing action from the Trudeau government, you could say, and we'll wrap up this, you're not feeling the vibe. You're not feeling the vibe?
Definitely not feeling the vibe.
Not feeling the vibe. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Kind of a theme for the hour, I think.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Two big issues in the mix today. First of all, the big news, Donald Trump threatening Canada with an across-the-board 25% tariff on all Canadian exports to the United States, including our oil. There had been talk that if Trump was going to try and impose any tariffs on Canada, that maybe oil would be exempted. According to some news reports this afternoon, no, it would include oil imported into the United States. He says Canada has to do something about open borders leading to increased drug trafficking. And Canada has to do something about illegal immigration from Canada into the United States, although most of the callers seem to agree that's probably more of an issue with the southern border. How confident are you the current government in Ottawa can prevent these tariffs from ever coming into effect? What do you think Trump is up to here? Share your thoughts. Meantime, the federal finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, yesterday claimed the Canadian economy is doing okay, just Canadians aren't feeling it. It's about vibes. She described the economy as being in a vibe session, not a recession, a vibe session. What do you think about those remarks? Off base? Tone deaf? It was described by one caller in the first hour as tone deaf. You think the Canadian economy is doing okay? It's just our vibes are off. I don't know. Every time I read that, I think, that's kind of funny. 1-833-668-2577. Peter in Calgary, thank you for waiting, Peter. You're on the air. Share your thoughts, Peter. Big issues today.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
First thing I want to say, Rob, is I just want to compliment you on how you handle your callers. I think it's very admirable. I've never heard you be condescending or patronizing, and I've even
well, you haven't listened long enough yet.
Well, there has been times too, and I hear, some callers struggle with getting their thoughts across, and you're incredibly patient and help them out, and so I think that's admirable. Appreciate it, and
Thank you, Peter.
I think I need more. I think we need more of that.
I appreciate that.
Anyhow, on the on Trump's tariff issue, well, I have about as much confidence in our government to solve this issue as I do in them being able to solve the issue with NATO, being able to solve the issue with the G7, being able to goes on and on and on. Anyhow, and as far as the border is concerned, I mean,
well, just on that, if I could just interrupt there, Peter, if I could just, do you think, say, look, all the polls, do you know what way the wind is blowing in this country? Do you think a new conservative government would maybe have better success in going toe-to-toe or meeting face-to-face with the Trump administration?
Well, I really don't think we have any really substantial negotiating position on anything, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, he can go and try, but I think it'd be a tough job.
Sure.
For him as well, just because of the position we're in right now with a lot of things. As far as the border is concerned, I mean, border cuts both ways. We get a lot of things up from the U.S. that we don't need up here. As far as immigration is concerned, I mean. They've been busing people up to the border of Quebec and dropping them off.
Well, this is it, Peter. After after Trump won the first time around in 2016, I mean, 2017, 2018, 150,000 people just walked right on in and into across Roxham Road. 150,000 people.
A lot of Democratic voters, I'm sure. But anyhow. And as far as our finance minister, you know what? She's in a nice, comfortable spot, surrounded by her sycophants and by people who really have they're not experiencing it the rest of the way the rest of Canada is. She looks at the bottom line of a spreadsheet and says, "Oh, everything's great. Why are people upset?" But does not, until she can walk a mile in our shoes, she really has no right to say things like that. No right whatsoever.
Maybe in an echo chamber there, right, with her. Okay, very interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Peter, and thank you for those kind words. Very nice of you to say. From Calgary to Halifax, Charlie, you're on the line, Charlie. Hi there.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Charlie. Great to hear from you today.
Listen, this thing on Donald Trump, I actually think he's one person that's really flown over the cuckoo's nest because, first of all, you know what? He is talking about we got to lock up our borders, and he's right about that. But you know what? Trudeau needs to put the military at our borders, and anybody thinks that they're going to cross into Canada, they need to turn them right around. Don't let them cross into Canada and send them back into the States.
Okay, but are you confident that Mr. Trudeau would ever do such a thing? I mean, for example, in Quebec, for example, borders are supposed to be controlled by the Canadian Border Services Agency. We have almost 20,000 people working for the Canada Border Services Agency. And outside of that, it's a federal issue. If it's law enforcement, then it should be the RCMP. Yet in the province of Quebec, because they're so concerned about what might happen at a place like Roxham Road, they've deployed their provincial police force there. The provincial police force is not a border security force in any way.
And you're right there, Rob. And do I have faith in Trudeau on doing something? No, I don't. We need somebody, because let me tell you something, and you'll remember this. His father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, like when Nixon was in as president of the United States of America, Pierre Trudeau, stuck up to Nixon. Nixon hated Trudeau because Trudeau basically told him where to go, right? Now, the thing is that...
Well, of course, but also, Mr. Trudeau, Pierre Trudeau, was, very left wing and had all kinds of things to say about various communist governments all over the world. Certainly seemed to be enamored with Mr. Castro, and there's Mr. Nixon. Mr. Nixon was, hardcore, about as hardcore as they come when it came to being anti-communist, right?
Yeah, for sure. But you know what, Rob? The thing is, and then he's talking about he's mixing it. He's putting us in the same bowl as Mexico. And I drive tractor trailer. I'm down in the States all the time. And let me tell you something. We got to stop drugs going into the United States. No, we got to stop drugs coming from the United States into Canada. That's the issue there.
Okay. I think your phone just cut out there. So we'll wrap it up there, Charlie. I got you loud and clear, however. Thank you.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On Trump's tariff threat, on the Vibe session, remark from Chrystia Freeland, Steve in Kitchener on all of these issues today. Hi, Steve.
How you doing?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks for calling.
So,
Go ahead.
I'll touch on some points real quick here.
Sure.
I won't try and drag it out. So, as far as Trump's tariff threats, I'm sure a lot of it is just posturing, and I'm sure a lot of that will soften once we get another conservative government and you've got like-minded heads running two countries that share the same border. With regards to the border, he's got 9 or 10 months to posture all he wants because he knows in reality what he's inheriting is a country that has functionally not had a border anywhere for the last 4 years under Biden, despite their repeated admissions that there's nothing wrong with the border. And he's coming into it. And what the other caller said there, he's got to do something about the people leaving the United States. Well, he doesn't need to do anything. Canada needs to do something about that, right? I mean, he's inheriting a kitchen that's full of rats, and he doesn't care if they go out the window, under the door. He doesn't care. As long as they're leaving, they're our problem. And he's right. So good on him for that.
Okay.
But yeah, we absolutely 100% should be arresting these people not carrying their luggage across the border, which we see every day. And quickly, with regards to Freeland and the vibing, I got to be honest, anyone who's ever watched that woman for more than 30 seconds and actually really watched her, she's the only one vibing. And I don't know what she's vibing on, but it's illegal.
Okay. All right. I don't know about that. You're watching too much Twitter, man. Okay. I hear you. Thank you, though, for your call, Steve, in Kitchener. Robert in Calgary. You're on the air, Robert. Go ahead, Robert.
Yes. I'm not sure I can add too much because some people have touched on what I want to say, but it has to do with Christine Freeland. You think of it as a country where there was only one person in the country and her in charge of her position. And that person has an income of $38,000 a year. And 2 years ago, his expenses were $36,000 and he had $2,000 to spare. Today, his expenses are $40,000 and he's going $2,000 in debt every year. Is that a situation where, from Christine Freeland's point of view, the economy's doing well, the gross domestic product went up by, 4,000 or so much because he's spending $2,000 in debt every month, but the gross domestic product of that system went up. Therefore, there's no recession.
Okay.
But that individual certainly feels a recession. So this shows that both sides of this can be true at exactly the same time, depending how they do their measurements. And I think it shows a total deafness on her part of not understanding that, because I think that's the situation we're in.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. Thank you for your call.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's take another one here. Kyle in Listowel up next. Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
Hey, I was looking for some vibing music to go with this.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. I don't know. What is a vibe? What she call it? A vibe session? Is that what she said? It was a vibe session?
It's a vibe session, not a recession. Yeah.
Is this a made-up word? Is this an actual word?
She says apparently it's the talk of the economic circles these days. Canada is in a vibe session.
very interesting. Well, for someone who makes $200,000 a year, I guess she could say that, right? But I don't know. I mean, honestly, I'm not in a vibe session. I'm in I would say a very hard time right now for just like every other Canadian. And even with the whole Trump thing, I mean, he could add all these tariffs all he wants. And if Trudeau was smart about it, and I don't know if this is smart maybe on my part, but this is just me being selfish of Canada, but I would stop everything. You want to put a tariff on oil? Good luck. Where are you going to get your oil from? We're your biggest trading partner for oil. Same thing with electricity. Where are you going to get electricity from? Are you going to keep buying from Canada to give you electricity down to some of the cities in the States? The garbage that goes and goes back and forth, that's another. Like, we are the biggest trading partner to the United States in the world. We have the biggest trading border. Windsor-Detroit border is the most profitable trading border in the world. Like this, I understand he wants America first, but you know what? There's other countries that want to put their country first, and I think he's going to have, if Trudeau was smart, he'd make it very, 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 very difficult for Trump to start enacting some of this stuff because at the end of the day, I mean, Canada's going to put themselves first, and we do a lot of stuff here in Canada, and we make great products, and where's that going to come from, right? You can't keep sending it to countries that are going to be shipping it halfway across the ocean when you can just go up north and grab it, right? So, you know what? There's lots of things that we can do. I think Trudeau just has to. I don't have any confidence in him, but I think he should do the right thing and start making it very difficult for Trump to impose all this stuff and show up Trump who his real ally is, because Canada is an ally, and we want to work with the United States, not against them, but this isn't going to help out the cause.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Interesting comments today. Thank you, Kyle. All right. Some phone lines available there. 1, 2, 3 lines available. 1-833-668-2577. We may even jump to the House of Commons because this is sure to be a topic of discussion in the House today. And I'm sure Mr. Poilievre will have some questions for Mr. Trudeau on the floor of the House. Always some fireworks there.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Just before we get back to your phone calls, I will only do this rarely during the Talkback, but this is such a big issue. It's so important for the Canadian economy. This threat of tariffs from Donald Trump. We do want to go to the House of Commons. The question period is underway. Pierre Poilievre questioning the Prime Minister on the plan to deal with this threat. Let's go.
President Trump had won the election. The only plan he has is a Zoom call. No plan to reverse his disastrous liberalization of drugs that have killed people and now threaten our borders. No plan to fix the broken borders that he caused. No plan to cancel the tax increases that will drive billions and many jobs away. Where's the plan to put Canada first?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Instead of panicking and falling back on slogans like the Leader of the Opposition, we rolled up our sleeves and we're getting to work. We're working with all the premiers, pulling together in a Team Canada approach, because that's how we defend Canadian jobs from coast to coast to coast. I spoke with Donald Trump yesterday evening, talked about how important it was for us to work together to solve some of the challenges we're facing as a continent, as countries, but also work to grow our economy, protect our workers on both sides of the border. This is the responsible, methodical approach we're taking as we move forward, while our opponent falls back on slogans and fear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He spoke with the incoming president, and moments later, Mr. Trump put out a tweet slapping a 25% tariff on Canada. So that worked about as well as the Prime Minister's efforts on Buy America and softwood lumber, which continue to be penalized, even though the previous Conservative government got both of those things lifted. Now move over to drugs. The Prime Minister's disastrous legalization and liberalization of drugs has the Americans worried, in addition to costing 47,000 deaths in Canada. Where's the plan to stop the drugs and keep our border open to trade?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader of the Opposition is just making stuff up. I clearly spoke with the President of the United States an hour and a half after he put out his suggestion on tariffs. The reality is we're going to continue to work constructively with the incoming administration to protect Canadian jobs, to protect Canadian growth, not to take the responsible approach that isn't steeped in partisanship, that pulls together the Team Canada approach that stands up for Canadians instead of throwing our arms up and saying all is broken like the Leader of the Opposition.
Okay, a little bit of the question period in Ottawa today. Thank you for that, David. Very well done. Let's go to Eric is in Halifax for a quick comment on these issues here today. Hi, Eric.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Eric. Thank you. Go ahead.
Let's put the shoe on the other foot. If Trump was in the same situation as we are, what do you think he would do? And secondly, that lady that said about the economy, don't worry about it. Well, I think she better open up her eyes and take a look around Canada and seeing how some of the people are suffering on everyday life. Most of the people in Canada don't make $100,000 and something a year. So I think she better get back in her tree and, refrain from what she has said and think before she talks in the not-too-distant future.
You're just giving off bad vibes today, Eric. You're giving off bad vibes today. Okay.
No, they're not bad vibes, Rob. It's the truth. It's reality.
I hear you. But she says this.
And as far as Trudeau goes, if he wants to get back in the good limelight with the Canadian people, yes, he better meet with the premiers and meet with somebody
he's doing that tomorrow.
Miracles
Tomorrow. It's happening tomorrow. We got to run, or they're going to cut us both off.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been talking about two big issues today. The biggest one is Donald Trump threatening Canada, along with Mexico, but of course we're focusing on Canada, threatening Canada with an across-the-board 25% tariff on all Canadian exports to the United States. He says Canada has to do something about its open borders. What's Trump up to? How confident are you the current government in Ottawa can come up with a plan, prevent these tariffs from ever coming into effect? And then you have the federal finance minister, Chrystia Freeland. We should play the tape again, David, of Chrystia Freeland saying the economy's doing okay. Canadians just aren't feeling it. She described the economy as not being in a recession. It's in a vibe session. It's in a vibe session. Go ahead, David. Go ahead.
The disconnect between the positive news that the numbers are showing about the Canadian economy and what people are feeling. He talked about how Canadians are feeling. And that's a really important economic point. A lot of economists have been talking about the vibe session and the fact that Canadians just aren't feeling good and that is having real economic consequences.
Right.
And
I think that's quite enough. Thank you. That's enough. Okay, let's go to Wayne in Cambridge, waiting patiently there. Wayne in Cambridge, thanks for calling. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Oh, hey, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good. Wayne, thank you.
Good. I listen to your program every day. It's a great program.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So as for the tariff, how about we put a tariff on them from shipping the guns across the border?
Well, it's just most of those guns are illegal guns, sir, so they're not supposed to be in the country anyway, right?
Right. But I'm sure they can do something about it, right?
Well, you would like to think so, sir. You would like to think so.
Yeah. So as for the economy, I don't think it's doing well.
You don't think it's doing well? Why do you say that? Why do you say that? It might be just that you have the wrong vibes.
Oh, well, I guess, but if they drive around, you can see people living in the bushes. Tents everywhere. Like that's worse than a third world country. It's not doing good at all.
No,
in my opinion.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's awful. A lot of companies not doing good. I went to a company yesterday that they manufacture all sort of products, and I was talking to the owner, and they're even on work share. He says he's never seen that in 40 years.
Work share.
So I don't know how the economy is doing good.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe for the government, right?
Well.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Anyway,
Thank you,
Rob,
Wayne.
you take care.
Yeah, you too. You too. Thank you for those kind words. Yeah, I think Wayne is spot on something. Chrystia Freeland claiming there's a vibe session. to Wayne's point, it just flies in the face of what people can see with their own two eyes. He mentioned encampments, what's going on with homelessness. Recent report from the Lawson Health Research Institute. What is that? It's part of St. Joe's Healthcare in London, Ontario. And it estimates the homeless population in Canada now at 235,000. 235,000 people. It's like the population of Oshawa or Regina or like St. Catharines. 235,000 people homeless in Canada. 235,000 people. And researchers, the reason they put out these numbers, they think it's actually a lot more than that. Maybe as many as 3 times more than that, like 700,000 people. And the reason they say that is because homeless people they're hard to keep track of. Right? It's kind of sad. And it's getting cold. I mean, it's been winter in Calgary for a week already, and it snowed here in Ottawa today. Well, it did where I am, just north of Ottawa. Let's go to Barbara in Calgary, though. Barbara, thank you for waiting, Barbara. Sorry to ramble on there. Hi.
Thanks for the opportunity to say something.
You're welcome.
When we consider just stopping sending oil and electricity, I think we must consider imported food we rely on. The U.S. could easily stop sending food into Canada. It's my feeling that Canadian leaders have set us up to become reliant on the U.S. rather than invest in our own country. Okay. And I would hope, it's my hope, that the next leader will invest in Canada and build towards our own self-reliance. That in itself would help our economy. And I just think that it's a frightening time right now for Canadians, and rightfully so. That's my 2 cents.
Sure. You would want Canada to be more self-reliant, maybe even, less dependent on not only trade with the United States, but maybe just trade in general, Barbara? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that we should be able to feed Canadians. We should be able to survive without the U.S. At least at some, for some things. We can't even feed ourselves without the United States.
Okay. And you're very focused on food. I'm just wondering what's behind that.
Well, if we consider the reality of our food, I'm curious to know what percentage of the food that we purchase comes from the United States. Right now, I believe that if the U.S. decided to stop sending food or make it so expensive, we're already struggling. And I really feel it's time that the Canadian government actually invest in Canada. I think that would really help the economy.
All right. Really interesting way to look at things. Thank you, Barbara, on food security and trade. Okay, very good. We'll stop here.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Right back on the phones on Trump tariffs on the Vibe session. Kim in Kitchener, thanks for waiting, Kim. You're up next. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Kim. Thank you.
You don't want to know what I think about Trump or Freeland at this point. I was always raised to, keep my political views to myself.
Okay.
You don't have 3 hours. Okay, a vibe session is actually a word.
It is a word, okay.
It is a period of widespread pessimism about the economy, regardless of the actual economic situation.
Okay, all right.
So it's a disconnect between the economy of a country and the general public's perceptions of it.
Right.
So that's basically what she was saying.
Yeah. But is she being realistic, I guess? Is there a disconnect, or are Canadians reflecting the reality of the economy?
I'm just going with what vibe session is here. Like, I cannot stand the lady either. And yes, your previous caller said watch her for 30 seconds on screen, and all I see is her head vibing up and down. She drives me crazy, right?
Okay.
So,
yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I'm not into making it personal. It's not personal for me. It's just whether she's actually reflecting what is really going on. Some of the callers said it comes across as kind of tone deaf and lacking empathy for the real
lacking empathy.
Lacking empathy. Yeah.
It's all disconnected.
Disconnected. Okay. See, I'm not really sure there is a big disconnect out there. I'm not sure that it's really a big disconnect. I mean, she could point to, well, the inflation has cooled and, the mortgage rates aren't as high as they used to be. But again, that belies everything that people are confronting these days when they go grocery shopping, or if they need to go and shop for a new apartment, or if they're renewing their mortgage. I mean, there are real struggles out there.
Right? Well, I know. I'm one in a real struggle.
Yeah.
I'm on Ontario Works and have been for years, trying to get a doctor.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it on Ontario Works. Like, how do you do it in a city like
tough.
Kitchener?
It's tough, but I do it.
I bet. Well, you're to be commended for that, I suppose. Kim, thank you for your call. Let's go to also in Kitchener today. Sharif. Is it Sharif? Yeah, Sharif. Yeah, in Kitchener. Sharif, are you there? Oh, I think we lost Sharif. That's too bad. How about John in Kitchener? John?
Good morning.
Yeah, hi, John. How are you?
Is it still? Oh, you're in Ottawa, aren't you?
Yeah, we're in Ottawa. You're in Kitchener,
okay.
Right? It is afternoon in Kitchener as well.
I'm confused. I'm old.
That's okay, John.
A couple of comments on Christina Freeland. I'm not a big fan of hers. However, I think she makes a good point in really what's happening as far as economy goes. I was on my way to work here the other day, and I just saw the amount of vehicles going back and forth on our expressway, and I'm wondering, is everybody not working, or are they just driving around? I think they're working, and I think the economy is probably better off than what many of your callers are saying. I can go by personal experience being here in the auto trade, both on the sales side and on the repair side, and we've never been busier. It's a real positive. And I think your other caller that called in, I believe it was before the news break at 2:30, the fellow that was so negative about the economy and just saying really weird things. He had better he's the one that said that we should be taking a look around, and he was going on about $100,000 a year income. $100,000 a year income is nothing anymore. And I feel sorry for the other caller that just called in. Her name was Kim. I sympathize with her. We do some philanthropic work. We're able to. And last point is the free trade auto pact. Is that affecting the Trump deal with the 25%?
Well, we have Kuzma now, right?
Right.
Canada, U.S., Mexico free trade agreement.
Yeah. So that's not going to be affected then, is my understanding.
Well, he's basically threatening to rip it all up. That's what he's doing. Now, legally, can he do that?
No, I don't know.
If he can't, how long does it take to fight that?
Wow, that's going to be a biggie.
Yeah, I would say so.
Be a biggie, but why also?
We're talking about almost $1 trillion of two-way trade between the two countries.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. And lastly, why doesn't he put on a 25% tariff on all this stuff that comes from China?
Well, he says he's going to impose even bigger tariffs on China.
Oh, Walmart's going to be in big trouble, aren't they?
Well, isn't that it? And I'm sure he's been told, but it doesn't seem to bother him or dent in any way his support among his diehards. I mean, a tariff on Alberta oil is going to mean higher gas prices.
Right.
A 25% on tariffs coming from autos that are assembled in southern Ontario is going to mean higher car prices for people. Higher prices on our agricultural commodities could mean cereal prices are higher, pasta prices are higher in the United States. But,
and I travel quite a bit in the States, and I've noticed like there's a lot of grocery prices that are far, far more expensive than what ours are. Long ago are the days gone that the United States was always cheaper than us.
Okay, I don't know. It'd be pretty hard to convince me of that now, especially with a 71-cent dollar, sir. But I do thank you for your call. We'll be right back. We'll go to Alberta for our next caller, probably our last caller.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, two big issues today. Donald Trump threatening Canada with across-the-board 25% tariffs, unless Canada does something about open borders, drug trafficking, illegal immigration into the United States. Any comments on that? And Chrystia Freeland describing our economy as being in a vibe session, not a recession. Our vibes are off. The economy's okay. It's our vibes are off. Let's go to Linda in Alberta. Thank you for calling, Linda. Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
What's
yes,
your opinion on that?
in regards to his tariffs, well, like I said, his company, he's been there before. And I've watched, because I get access to TV for the States, places that weren't Republican places, their factories were closing because the tariffs were importing was costing way too much. So he hurt himself there. And as far as Kristen Freeland, I worked for 35 years in the EA, and I did teacher work, but my wage income was low. So my basic pension is less than $2,000 a month.
Right.
Over the year, because I had some savings and stuff, or investments. Anyway, my income went up to $31,000. The government cut me back $200 a month because they said I was over their threshold.
You're making too much money. Yeah.
I was making too much money. $30,000 a year, and I was making too much money. Now they're handing stuff out to people that $120,000. It makes no sense to me.
Well, up to $150,000.
Yeah, but for me, at $30,000, I made too much. They cut me back basically $2,000 a year. So I don't see it with her. The economy is good. No, that's just a catchphrase to make you look
plus,
the
I
other
guess
way.
I guess if the economy is doing so well, then why do you need to spend whatever it is, $6.3 billion to give out all of these goodies? Why do you need to take the GST off of video game consoles for 2 months and everything else, and then send everybody a check for $250? Yeah.
And why claw back money from me for that?
And why exactly? Sure, great points all around, Linda.
So it's just I haven't gone to the States since the early 70s. We're like an hour away from there. People would go down to Great Falls because it's closer than Calgary. But when I went down, our dollar was par and even a little above. They wouldn't recognize us as having more money value than they did. And when I came back, Canada wouldn't recognize the American dollar that I brought back as being more than it was either. So it's like, I'm done. If I can't buy it in Canada, I'm not buying it. I'm not traveling to the U.S. and paying 25 cents more on the dollar for stuff when I can find something right here.
Okay. Look, I really thank you for your call. Some very interesting points that you make today, and great way to wrap up the show today. It's been very busy, and I thank you so much for the last 2 hours of discussion. Really appreciate it. Just speaking of our dollar, since everybody's been wondering what's going on with the Canadian dollar and how it would react in light of this Trump news. There was a sell-off. Late last night. This hit at around 9 o'clock Eastern time last night. So the dollar did sell off. It never got below 70 cents U.S. Kind of came pretty close. 70.60 cents U.S. Has been the low in the last 24 hours. It's recovered a little bit from there. Just above 71 cents U.S. now, 71.10 cents U.S. Our 70-cent dollar. We're back tomorrow with new topics and more calls with your help. The latest breaking news is coming up next. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.